The Galactic Council had existed for 12,000 cycles, a sprawling bureaucracy of over 400 species that governed trade, diplomacy, and peacekeeping across 17 spiral arms. In all that time, humanity had been nothing more than a footnote, a recently discovered species from a backwater star system, barely worth the ink used to document their existence. Ambassador Ktoresh of the Vrin Collective remembered the day humanity first petitioned for council membership. The human delegation had stood before the assembled representatives with their soft skin, their peculiar bilateral symmetry, and their painfully optimistic smiles. They came from a death world, a planet so hostile that most council species would require hazard suits just to survive its surface. Yet somehow, these fragile creatures had not only survived but thrived. The council had laughed, politely of course, as befitted civilized beings, but they laughed nonetheless. "Your species shows promise," Ktoresh had told them, his translator rendering his chittering into flat human speech. "Perhaps in a few centuries, when you've matured, we can revisit your application." The humans had left quietly, their delegation leader, a woman named Chen, simply nodding with an expression Ktoresh couldn't quite read. That had been 30 cycles ago. The war with the Kresh Dominion had started as these things always did, with a border dispute, escalating threats, and finally, the deployment of battle fleets. The Kresh were apex predators from a heavy-gravity world, standing 3 meters tall with exoskeletons that could deflect energy weapons. They had conquered 47 systems in as many cycles, and the Galactic Council's peacekeeping forces were losing badly. Ktoresh sat in the emergency session, listening to reports of another defeat. 7 council ships destroyed, 20,000 personnel lost. The Kresh advance continued unopposed. "We need allies," someone said. "Species with military capability we haven't yet tapped." "There's no one left," another replied. "Every warrior species is already committed." That's when the human delegation requested the floor. Chen stood before them again, older now, her hair streaked with gray. But her eyes held the same expression Ktoresh remembered, the one he'd never understood. "The Terran Federation offers its assistance," she said simply. The council chamber erupted in confused murmuring. The humans? The Death World primitives who'd been rejected for membership? What could they possibly offer? "Your gesture is appreciated," Ktoresh said carefully. "But this is a matter for established military powers." "With respect, Ambassador," Chen interrupted, and something in her tone made his translator falter. "You're dying out there. You don't have the luxury of pride anymore." The council reluctantly agreed. After all, what harm could it do? The first Terran expeditionary fleet arrived at the Kresh front lines 3 days later. Ktoresh, assigned as a liaison officer, watched through the view screen as the human ships emerged from faster-than-light travel. They were unusual, bulky, inelegant things that looked more like asteroids than spacecraft. Council warships were sleek and beautiful, their designs refined over millennia. Human ships looked like they'd been assembled from scrap. "Those are your warships?" Ktoresh asked, unable to hide his skepticism. The human admiral, a scarred man named Martinez, smiled. "These? No, Ambassador. These are our cargo haulers. We retrofitted them for war. Our actual warships are classified." Before Ktoresh could respond, alarms blared. A Kresh battle group was approaching, 3 heavy cruisers and a swarm of fighters. Standard protocol was to retreat and regroup. The humans advanced. What happened next would be studied in military academies for generations. The Kresh opened fire with their devastating plasma cannons, weapons that had melted through council shields like hot knives through protein gel. The human ship's shields flickered but held. Then the humans returned fire. But they didn't use energy weapons. They used projectiles, massive chunks of metal accelerated to relativistic speeds, powered by controlled nuclear detonations. Kinetic kill vehicles that struck with the force of small asteroids. The Kresh ships, designed to deflect energy, had no defense against simple mass and velocity. The first cruiser exploded, then the second. The third attempted to retreat, but human missiles, crude chemical rockets that somehow moved faster than council interceptors, struck its engines. The battle lasted 4 minutes. Ktoresh stared at the debris field, his translator struggling to process his shocked chittering. "How?" Admiral Martinez's expression was the same one Ktoresh had seen on Chen's face 30 cycles ago. He finally understood what it meant. It was the look of a species that had clawed its way to the top of a death world food chain, that had survived ice ages and plagues and wars among themselves, that had split the atom and walked on their moon before they even knew aliens existed. It was the look of a species that had been underestimated for far too long. "Ambassador," Martinez said quietly, "we've been fighting wars since before we discovered fire. We've been killing each other with rocks, bronze, steel, and nuclear weapons. We've refined the art of violence for 200,000 years on a planet that tries to kill us every single day. You asked how we do this?" He gestured to the tactical display, where human forces were already moving to engage the next Kresh battle group. "This is what we do. This is what we've always done. You survive on your peaceful worlds with your elegant weapons and your civilized warfare. We came from hell and we brought hell with us." The war ended in 20 cycles. The Kresh Dominion, which had never known defeat, surrendered unconditionally. The Galactic Council held an emergency session to discuss humanity's role in the new order. Chen stood before them once more, no longer petitioning but dictating terms, council membership, full voting rights, technology sharing agreements. "And one more thing. We'll serve as your peacekeepers," she said, "because apparently you need us." Tharesh watched her speak and realized the galaxy had changed forever. Humanity had been overlooked, dismissed as primitive deathworlders with crude technology and violent tendencies. But those violent tendencies, born from a hostile world and a history of endless conflict, made them the most effective warriors the galaxy had ever seen. The council agreed to every term. As the session ended, Tharesh approached Chen privately. "I owe you an apology," he said. "We underestimated your species." Chen smiled, that same patient smile from 30 cycles ago. "Everyone does, Ambassador. Usually only once." She turned to leave, then paused. "By the way, those retrofitted cargo haulers, we have 200 more just like them. And yes, we do have actual warships, but we figured we'd save those for species that are actually a threat." Tharesh watched her walk away and felt something he'd never experienced before in his 70 cycles of diplomatic service. Fear. Not of what humanity had shown them, but of what they'd kept hidden. The galaxy would never overlook humanity again. In the corridors of power, a new phrase entered common usage among council species, spoken in hushed tones with a mixture of respect and terror. "Never anger the deathworlders." Humanity had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same.